Great. So this is quite the panel. We've been discussing the topic of payment tech for your secrets over the last couple of days, and it's pretty fascinating what our assorted sort of panelists are working on. Like at Novum, we've been building data tools for stacks, tracking all parts of the ecosystem, and I think that what you'll hear from the three panelists in order is pretty astounding in terms of where people are looking to go and how they're looking to track our data and make sure that your data is protected effectively. So, Louise, you're doing quite a unique project, Ryder. So
yeah. So to give everybody like a short description of what Ryder is, we're actually building the next generation of wallets. So we embed your decentralized identity in a wallet, hardware wallet, and then we actually make it accessible for everybody. So you can instantly tap to send a blockchain transaction. You can use your identity to enter spaces. I can flick NFT with Toby, or we can even recover your crypto in the case of loss. And that's what we're doing at Ryder.
Yeah, and it sounds pretty incredible what you're doing, and very ambitious, Louise. So we'll dive into that in a second. And Wilson, you've been building BlockSurvey for a while and looking at rewards linked to surveys. How's that going?
Yes, hi everyone, I'm Wilson, co-founder of BlockSurvey. BlockSurvey helps people run sensitive surveys in the areas of mental health, sexual health, activism, protest, on various sensitive areas for data collection. It's built on stacks. So today it's a data collection tool, so extending BlockSurvey to be a data sharing network on stacks. Wanted to reward people for the time and the effort they bring in their data to share it with businesses. So that's what we are going next.
Yeah, no, and incredible. And Mohamed, obviously with Pravica, you're really helping the enterprise communicate, maintain their secrets. How's it going?
Yeah, thank you, and I'm really glad to be here. I'm Mohamed Abdou, CEO and founder of Pravica. We at Pravica are more focused with the privacy products, so we are building digital communication suite that utilizing the stacks utilities and all the power behind stacks to secure the digital communication, especially for enterprises. As we know, the privacy violation and data breaches and all these problems that facing enterprises, especially, this is huge. And I believe that Web 3.0 and blockchain generally is a perfect fit to solve this problem.
Yeah, and we were debating yesterday, Mohamed, about the sort of distinction between privacy and security in Web3 dApps and those kind of things. What's your take on it? Because I think you're quite passionate about the...
Yeah, I believe that data security is like a mission, which is every service provider need to make sure that the data, when the users interact with your product, the data must be secure. So it's a mission for any service provider. But privacy, it's a complete different story. So it's a vision for the company. If your company is building something secure but not private, so you need to make sure that the vision here has a problem. So to take data privacy and to start thinking about it as the essential for any business to start building, yes, data security is like a mission, and data privacy is a complete different story about it.
Yeah, and I love the demo you showed me of the Pravica platform. I'm going to be downloading it later. But in terms of Louise, like you're working on a really interesting problem of like your NFT identity, how those get stored in hardware wallets, and how that mixes up. So what's your take on identity and privacy and how people maintain?
I think when it comes to Web3 and identity, I think where it's heading, we feel like, okay, multiple identities for multiple purposes in a multi-chain world. I don't think there's a scenario where I, Louis, that BTC will use my single identity for everything. There are things that I don't want, for example, for you to know that about my finances, how much tokens did I transfer to Wilson. Though I think those kind of things, for example, I think what's good on Stacks and the BNS is, so BNS, one seed phrase, you can actually create multiple identities. And you can actually use these multiple identities to do various kinds of things that you want to do with it. It could be on like finance, NFT, whatever. So for me, I have a public-facing identity, which is Louis.btc, but I have 19 other identities on Stacks that I use for other purposes.
Fantastic. So quite a few wallets to manage.
I have a lot of wallets. I feel like everybody in the room as well has probably, if you ask them how many wallets do you have, you probably have a lot.
Yeah. And maintaining that is also...
I put it in a notepad. Marvin won't be happy. You never put your passwords in notepad. I have mine in a notepad.
Right. Well, you're a brave man to say that on stage in a room full of hackers. But welcome. Anyway, so hope you have as much wealth at the end of this panel as you had before. But the Wilson, of course, on BlockSurvey, your plan is to effectively sort of a form of affiliate marketing in a way, right? Where you're able to provide rewards on Stacks in Bitcoin for surveys. So I could see that, like for a use case of getting people to fill into a survey, like probably a lot of people are familiar with SurveyMonkey or Typeform. You're giving a crypto rewards incentive on chain to people and getting sort of proof of them filling in the survey and combining blockchain there. So how does privacy play out in that sort of scenario?
Absolutely. So today, in forms and surveys, whenever you fill up a contact form or an application, so what you do is you deposit this data to the businesses, and you actually don't want it. So it's almost like pushing into a black hole, and you don't take ownership of the data, you share it with businesses today. So what we are trying to bring in is using Stacks as a wallet, as a data wallet. I think today we see Stacks more as a financial wallet, but it could be seen as a data wallet as well. And when you choose to share data with businesses, you will start to deposit your data within your wallet, and then sign and share a copy with the business. And what this brings in is eventually complete transparency to see a timeline of all your activities, to see where you have shared data with, who you have shared data with. And eventually you will have also permissions to take back access to your data, whom you have shared with. And businesses can just subscribe to your data to see your data. And you can give permissions for them to see data as well. Yeah. So that's where we see a provable or a demonstrable privacy can be shown when you share data with businesses. And that's what we wanted to build in a decentralized way.
And I imagine security is absolutely critical for your platform. I mean, we read, as I'm about to go on stage, I was reading about MailChimp getting hacked following HubSpot, and both of them targeting crypto customers. So I'm guessing like getting the as strong cryptography as possible is critical.
Absolutely. I think since it's a decentralized wallet, right, and people continue to store on their wallet, and as long as the businesses don't hold in centralized servers, I see data breaches or leaks may not be happening in a single point of failure, so it has to be distributed to massively take down everything. So what we see is with respect to operational security, it will be far, far lesser. And if a breach happens, it will happen at a very individual's mission level, yes.
And Mohamed, you're being a real trailblazer, bringing kind of Web3 to the enterprise and that kind of thing. And we had a really interesting discussion yesterday about your views on where the consumer, the individual sits in Web3 versus the enterprise. How's that going to tie up with that?
Yeah, so who owns .btc name here? .btc name, that's great. So this is your key entry. When you're going to build something and you claim that it is a privacy-focused product, you need to take care about two important elements. the identity management, and the storage. This is if you are building these kind of products. So the identity must be non-sovereign identity, and this is what we have in .btc name. No one can stop you for using it. So the identity, which, for example, .btc name, allowing you to encrypt and decrypt the content with the keys that's owned by you. And the second element, which is the storage, and in Stacks, we have a great service called Gaia, which is allowing you to encrypt everything by your keys and push to whatever the cloud provider, and you are not worried about losing your data or someone can spy on you. So the identity management and the storage management are the most important two key elements when you start building privacy-focused application. This is what we are doing. And in terms of data privacy for enterprises, it's a complete different story. For us, as individuals, our data is our own. But for enterprise application, when you send some critical information that's related to your work to your colleague, it's related to the company. It's owned by the company. So you need also a special kind of data management on top of the identity management to secure the way of sending and receiving data, and also for the identity management to onboard a new employee, to revoke identity from someone who's going to leave the company, and all these things. So here is how we are differentiating the data privacy for individuals and for enterprises.
And Louise, I think you slightly jokingly earlier touched on an important point to do with your private key.
Yeah.
And like, to a certain extent, I see that as one of the biggest vulnerabilities of being a user of crypto, right? You can lose your private key, you can have it stolen, and then suddenly the person's got the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing Ryder as a device is going to solve for some of those problems, but how do you see it panning out?
Yeah, because I think when it comes to privacy, I think mostly us tech guys, we make it a proposition like, okay, this thing that we're building has privacy. People don't get it, right? We don't focus on the user level. That's why what we do at Ryder, we have everything already built in. We're using BNS, we're doing hardware. And yeah, so we solve that problem specifically. We have this thing called social recovery. So because with private keys, you lose your private keys, you lose everything. But what if there's a way to actually recover it? What if Toby could actually split his private keys to me, to Wilson, and to Abdou? And in the case of loss, we can actually come together and recover it. So that's what we do at Ryder. We focus on like the user level. So because my friends are here, right? I have hi to the Stacks community, but a lot of us actually, I think, I have friends in 2016 that wanted to go in crypto, same time as me. 6 years later, they still couldn't get in because the technical barriers were very high, and they still don't understand what's a private key. So for us, we want to focus on that market. That's why we had this thing called social recovery.
Yeah. And it does seem like that essentially if you're moving best practice, if you're moving around large sums of money in crypto, you should really be making sure you have a hardware wallet. So super cool that Stacks now has ledger integration and that kind of thing. There's going to be a multi-sig, I think, coming from the Trust Machine guys as well. So where are we at with a lot of those things?
Well, for what?
With the best practices of how you...
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of education needed, right?
Yeah.
I think people in the room probably don't even know, okay, why do we actually use a hardware wallet, right? What is it actually used for? I can just like store my stuff on like the web extension here, right? But I don't think it's a safe hygiene. The first blog post that Marvin wrote, he actually specifically said that your master key, whether it's like public or private, shouldn't exist on like your PC or phone, right? You want actually a separate device off the chain that can actually be an endpoint, and use this end device to actually tap and connect to the network and send all your transactions. I think we just need more education.
Yeah, and there's a very interesting problem. I guess it's some of the external regulators and the banking system and FATFA and whatever are pushing at the privacy angle of crypto in a very, very different way, right? So we're, I guess this might be a question for Mohamed, kind of how are the things going to marry up? Because we've got the travel rule coming out at the moment where effectively your banks are going to be asking for and the exchanges are going to be expected for any transaction over $1,000 to have KYC and AML of the people involved. So how does that marry up to the existing Stacks system or other DeFi systems where people are essentially anonymous or maybe with a .btc domain or whatever? How will that marry up, do you think, Mohamed?
Yeah, I think to start integrating with the banking systems or to accept the transaction and all these things, you need to come with a very important element, which is the KYC.
Yeah.
And I believe that it's not a big deal to provide your name or something like this, as long as you guarantee that there's no one can stop your transaction. This is the most important thing that I believe this is the core value of crypto is the non-sovereign identity and non-sovereign. No one can control your transaction, and you need to do it in a fast way and a very, very low fees and all these things. As long as we can guarantee that all these features are available, but we can add a kind of KYC layer on top of it, which is something the majority now are doing. You will not be able to participate in any crypto exchange and doing transaction without the KYC. And this is essential as long as you are not willing to do a malicious activities. And I believe that this is like 90%, 95% from people participating in crypto, they like the crypto because it solves the banking problem. But it doesn't mean that we stop the KYC and all the regulations, because if we're going to neglect all these things, it's going to be hard to achieve the adoption. Adoption coming, especially when the new innovation, adoption is coming from up to down. So think about GPS. It started as a project in US Army, right? And then going down to enterprises. And now everyone has GPS service in your device. So we need to accelerate this adoption by giving the all reasons and solving all problems for governmental entities and for enterprises to start jump into crypto. Once it is done, it's going to be easy to attract more and more people from individuals, and this is the key point that allowing us to go with the mass adoption.
Yeah, no, 100%. So it's yeah, there's a fascinating time going ahead. And I 100% agree with you. The sort of unstoppable nature, seamless, peer-to-peer, frictionless of crypto is what's exciting, right? Because if you try and transfer money overseas with the traditional banking structures, you can wait 5 days. Like once you've used crypto, it's quite hard to go back to anything else. I don't know.
That's it.
In terms of sort of what you're most excited about, Louise, in the Stacks ecosystem, what are some of the things to payment and secrecy?
I'm biased. I'm excited about Ryder.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, definitely. I think because I track all the growth of the Stacks ecosystem, right? I think Stacks is in a great position.
Yeah.
If you look at the number of wallet addresses, it actually increased 10 times from last year. So now the number of wallets sits at 417,000 Stacks addresses. And then in terms of TVL, also the Stacks network actually, we're almost close to 500 million stacks, and that's very big. And then if you look at the cycles, it keeps on increasing. And we actually gave out almost 1,500 BTC to all the stackers. I think the interesting use cases probably is NFT yielding assets. I think that's super interesting. And the moment the NFTs could actually yield, you can now use it to maybe collateral or lend it on Alex, or for example. I think those kind of use cases, maybe you use NFT for payments, those NFTs. Yeah.
And I think it is actually what always got me most excited about Stacks as well, is just and Wilson, your product is very much based on the selling point of being able to earn Bitcoin for doing stuff, right? Like Because in a lot of other DeFi, you get random token X compounded. At least you know with the Bitcoin element that even if you're compounding an NFT that might be worthless or not very valuable, you're getting Bitcoin at the end of it, right? So and I think you're seeing with your customer base, the Bitcoin selling point is really strong.
Exactly. I think so. What we see is still Bitcoin is paramount, and it's easy to market as well. So when we take a product to consumers with Bitcoin as rewards, I think that in itself has a story and it's easy to sell. So what we see is it's an easy way to bootstrap the network, and we are taking that approach to go to market. And what I would like to see with Stacks is, I think Stacks really anchors themselves on digital rights. I remember Munib giving the tech talk, and that's what made us to come inside the Stacks ecosystem. So it's primarily about digital rights. So privacy leads to digital rights, and what we see is digital rights is definitely a human right today. And what we see is with the payments tech and coming on top of Stacks, I think with the card which is being launched by Unbanked. So what I see is a little more privacy, like Tornado Cash or Umbra Cash, enabling private way to transact. Maybe we take this card and go and spend on purchases, probably, which is something that you don't want to share. Could be buying medicines, could be something you're embarrassed to share it with public. So the peer-to-peer way of transacting on Stacks, and if it enables more anonymization and more private, and I'm sure it'll be very interesting. That's something that I'm excited to watch in the Stack space.
Yeah, and Mohamed, in terms of the security of Stacks, right? I mean the proof of transfer mechanism and having a blockchain inside the sort of security perimeter of Bitcoin is also quite a big selling point for our ecosystem, I'd say, right?
Yeah, that's great. That's true. So in terms of data security, what's happening with the proof of transfer and Stacks that inheriting the highest level of data security that Bitcoin can support us with, which is the most reliable network running for more than 13 years without a single point of failure. This is something that you need to understand, and Stacks is doing great in terms of inheriting these security features and allowing people that are doing transactions over Stacks to be secured. This is something very critical. By connecting Stacks with the Bitcoin, it opens now the gate for more and more applications, because blockchain by nature is very costly to store data, and it's at a certain level, when you think about 100% of decentralization, it's going to take time for executing the transaction and all these things. But Stacks now allowing us to check what's the most important element, for example, for the identity management. So for your identity, the most important element is to be highly secure, and you will never get this feature without putting these parameters on a public permissionless blockchain. And this is what we are doing on Stacks, and then every transaction is being connected with the Bitcoin network. It gives you more and more trust that I'm totally secured. So the security mechanism and inheriting all these features from the most reliable network, which is the Bitcoin, I think this is something huge for Stacks to start building more and more applications on top of it.
Yeah, amazing. And we're coming up towards the 5-minute mark, so if anyone has any burning privacy, security questions, ask away, or anything else. So, well, Sarah in the front, if, while you're getting a microphone. While he's getting a microphone, I'd like to, you also, Louise, like Mohamed, were in the core hero team, what's your take on the sort of security layer of stacks and that kind of thing?
Disclaimer, I'm from the foundation.
Sorry.
No, but I was from Blockstack before, I think. I think for me, I'm a multi-chain guy, right? I always think, okay, Stacks has like its certain use cases. Maybe for me, I always explain to people, maybe for, okay, I think one good example is NFTs. If you have a Beeple NFT that's like very expensive, I don't think you want it on Ethereum, right? Maybe you want it on a blockchain that's like a bank and it's secured, then you put it to Stacks. Maybe, for example, you have a Megapond, and that Megapond, you want to play it on Sandbox, and then you actually move your Megapond from Stacks to Ethereum in actually to order access to the metaverse. I think Stacks proposition in general is all about security and settlement on Bitcoin. You know?
Yeah, 100%. And so a question from the front.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, everyone. I'm curious what your thoughts are on identity and KYC, particularly on-chain versus kind of an off-chain or distributed identifier. So like kind of this like idea of a tokenized kind of on-chain identity solution versus distributed identifiers versus other sort of off-chain solutions. If there's any thoughts that you have about what you're seeing or what you're excited by.
Yeah, I can take this. So
yeah.
I believe that, as we mentioned, that the identity is the most important element when you think about building Web3 applications. Like when you try to interact with some applications claiming that they are a Web3 or something like this, and then, when you're going to register, you need to add your email. How come? So, because it's not easy to mention that I'm a Web3 product. Identity is very important. This is why I believe the most practical way to get the trust from the users is to put the identity on a public permissionless blockchain. But to use it on-chain, off-chain, maybe good, but it's going to open the gate for some malicious activities. You don't trust who's controlling this off-chain. You have nothing to give you the 100% trust about this product. But as long as the identity on-chain, permissionless, and it's secured and it's public, then you have the full trust that no one can control my identity. And then taking it to whatever the product and authenticate with this identity with whatever the product and going on.
Thanks.
I would like to add as well. So what we are looking at is...
We have time for one more question, or I'll take it. So doesn't look like it. So this brought up a very interesting point, and we haven't dived into mixers and ZK snarks and a lot of things. We kind of touched on it in the regulatory area. Like where do you think things like Tornado Cash and all these quite controversial things, Monero, where do they sit, and how open should we be to like total hardcore crypto privacy? Right?
I think we should give the choice to the users.
Yeah.
Choice should be definitely available is what I advocate for, and based on your use case, right? How do you want to conduct yourself? I think we should leave it to the people to make that choice. And I see, as an ecosystem, we wanted to enable that as well.
Very cool. And I don't know, on that final point, Louise, Mohamed, any thoughts?
No, thank you. I'm perfect.
Yeah, I know. I would just love to second Wilson. I think plus one to what he said. I think it all depends to you. You want to do a coin swap? Yeah. Do you want to use a Monero?
Yeah.
If you do, go for it. I don't think we should constrain user for it, right? Like if somebody wants to use a more privacy-centric token, go for it. If I want to do a token swap, who cares? I want to go for it.
Yeah, no, although it was very interesting when the Looks Rare team essentially forwarded like $100 million worth of Ethereum to various parts of their team through Tornado Cash. It completely tanked their token price by about 65% because they were going, what the hell are these guys doing? But,
those are the bad examples.
Okay.
Talk from the analytics, Since you're from the analytics, I think you may have to add some.
Yeah, it was
how
a
you
fun
would
moment.
decipher it, right?
Yeah, it's always annoying from an analytics point of view when people decide to put in mixers and those kind of things. But interesting. Okay, well, a fantastic panel. So much to discuss: privacy, payments, identity. The panel's going to be here most of the day, so ask away after the event.
Thank you.
Thank you.